Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of our Bella interviews. We're so excited, you all, to have Elle Marquez with us here today. Hi, Elle.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Good to see you. I walked into Elle's coffee shop after I found Kismet Coffee on Instagram, and I was like blown away at just how welcoming and how just even aesthetic your place was, and then coming up to you and introducing myself and you introducing you to me, and I just thought we got to hear this girl's story. Like, there is so much more to this girl than just this beautiful coffee shop. So we got to get to know you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you, thank
so
you. Yeah,
thank you for agreeing to do this interview
of
and kind of
course.
getting to know you and your story. And
Of course.
so
Thanks
we'll
for
just,
inviting me. I'm flattered to be
yeah,
here.
of course. No, thank you for agreeing to do this. And we'll just like jump right in. So I just
Mhm.
wanna so how about you tell us a little bit about you? So
Mhm.
Elle, who is Elle? Like if we were to want to know all about you, tell us a
Okay.
little bit about you, and then we'll get into, the business stuff in a second.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Elle or Elvira. I'm the founder and proprietor of Kismet Coffee. I have a background in English literature with a focus on 19th century American lit. So it's like ethnic American literature and trauma theory, which might seem like not connected to coffee, but storytelling and community have always been central to who I am. I'm also first generation Latina. I built my business. I built Kismet from the ground up, so I financed it myself, and I navigated through all of the challenges and really just held on and staying committed to this idea of creating a space that feels welcoming and warm, which I'm getting you got. So that makes me happy to hear. Yeah, that's pretty much me. My parents are from Mexico. I'm 36 years old. Um, and yeah, it's pretty much a lot about me.
That's awesome. And I know that's a snippet because once we're going to get talking, we're going to learn so much more. But I'm so
Yeah.
curious about your business and want you to tell us a little bit more about the coffee shop. Like, how was the idea even born? And even like
Hmm.
the name, like, how did you come up with the name? And like, just kind of walk us through like ideation, like concept of like having this and how it was born into like really the space that you're in right now, because that's where you're at right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the idea came from like a mix of passion and this like desire to create something meaningful. I have always loved coffee. It was my first job that I ever got when I turned when I turned 18. And I love that. I love coffee not as just as a drink, but like the experience of it, the way that it would bring people together, or it served as a safe space for me when I needed to study, or it served as a space for me to meet people that I wanted to connect with that I hadn't connected with in a long time. So I love the ritual of coffee and what it can give. And so I really wanted to create a space that was intentional, where people could find comfort, and they like just like how I did growing up, they can find inspiration, or maybe just hang out and have like a moment of peace and relax. Um, so really, that's how this idea came about. Um, and yeah, yeah, that's what I have so far.
And do you have so when you started the coffee, was your thought to like, I'm gonna provide like kind of different flavors of coffee and stick to that, or because you have a food menu too, right? Like, didn't you bring in some food or pastries or
Yeah, I have pastries. The idea was always to have, to create these recipes. I love cooking, so my passion for cooking is to sort of come in through that. So the idea was to create these drinks, and then have pastries along with it. I do want to move into creating like actual breakfast sandwiches and stuff. But because of the permitting process and how long it took to get everything situated, and just um, I wanted to, I didn't want to bite off more than I can chew all at once. So I'm kind of like working my way up to that. And so now I do have pastries. I source them from Homeboy Industries. I really wanted to tie in this idea of sourcing as much as I could from other people of color and keeping it in the community. So yeah.
That's really awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of folks don't think about like, and those that are listening that own coffee shops or restaurants, I'm sure could totally relate. But those that don't, or like folks like me that come in and just enjoy the delicious coffee, we don't really think about it. But it's a
Mhm,
lot behind the scenes to think about, like,
mhm,
all the ingredients. Like, I'm always
mhm,
fascinated at like, how do you know how much to buy? And like, how, you have to store it obviously safely. And
mhm,
then like, what if your machine breaks down? And
mhm,
like, then you think about adding the element of like food, and that's a whole nother thing
mhm,
about ingredients. And so I can't even imagine like
mhm,
the thought and the planning and all that that has to
mhm.
go, like, has to go behind the scenes when you're thinking about doing that. So it
Yeah,
makes sense to
yeah,
kind of
it's a
dig
lot.
in.
It's
Yeah.
a lot. It's definitely a lot. And it's a learning curve and a learning process, and you learn to adapt and you learn to wear a lot of hats and you pick up a lot of new skills. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just about like adapting and sort of taking it, attacking one thing at a time. I think if we start to think about the project as a whole, it easily anyone can get overwhelmed. But I think just sort of taking like one project at a time and approaching it from like a one day at a time perspective, and then also just like pushing forward, relentlessly, don't give up. But yeah, it seemed overwhelming for me to think about like this and this and this and this, but yes, as far as sourcing the shop, you can never really tell, especially when you're new and you're growing, and how do you anticipate like what you're going to need. So you sort of just have to like, it is a daily thing, or like keeping inventory and keeping lists and writing everything down and just like, staying on top of it. So even now I'm like, I think I order enough, but thank God we're growing steadily every week by week. So right when I think that I'm ordering extra, it's just enough for that week. And then I'm ordering extra, and then it's just enough for that week. So yeah, there are always solutions to every obstacle.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, you have a really great just kind of like perception and attitude around it, which I think is super helpful because I'm sure it could be a little stressful at times.
Mhm,
But so
mhm.
why East LA? Why did you decide to like, I mean, LA is huge, right? And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what is it about the community or about that space specifically, maybe that compelled you to?
Um, it was a combination of a lot of things coming together, so that kind of ties the name Kismet, meant to be as well. I am Latina, and I know that I wanted to build something within the Latino community. And I was initially in the Boyle Heights area, but the landlord actually referred me over to this location of his, and I fell in love with the space. And it has a patio that I'm also excited to open soon. But at its core, I really just wanted to be a Latina and support the Latino community in the way that I could, and be an example as well to other Latina entrepreneurs of like what we're capable of, and creating that space.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, it's definitely a great location. If you all that haven't been there yet, you need to check it out. You will not be disappointed. I'm definitely gonna head over there very soon as well.
Yeah.
Or head over there again, I'll say as well. So
Yeah.
this is a question I always ask folks when we're interviewing them because I'm so curious about like the way you grew up, right? Like the
Mhm.
background. Because we think,
Mhm.
again, sometimes we look at business owners or we look at like
Mhm.
new places opening up and you kind of just see people for where they're at this point in time. Or
Mhm.
there
Mhm.
is conversation about the future. But like you came from somewhere, like, you
Mhm.
grew up, you were a kid once, you had, maybe dreams to do this or maybe different dreams before, right? Like, so just walk us through a little bit about like what was your like tell us about your background. Like, how was it growing
Okay.
up? Like little Elle growing up into a teen, into adulthood. Like, what was that like?
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. Both of my parents immigrated from Mexico. So I was born here, but they were born there. Um, education was like a huge emphasis in our family. So we moved around a lot. I went to 4 different elementary schools. I went to 2 different middle schools and 2 different high schools. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so sometimes we had to move to sort of adapt to our financial situation. And that kind of taught me how to make friends really quickly, how to be social, how to adapt to changing environments. And I think that played a big role into also like opening a business, right? Learning how to adapt into continuous changing environments. And um, I got my undergrad degree from Cal State Northridge in English literature, and then I got my master's from Cal State Long Beach. Um, and after I graduated, I was in the workforce, like working a few corporate jobs, and then the idea of the coffee shop was born, and now here I am.
Yeah, and do you do this full time? So are you, because I
Yeah.
know some folks are part time doing their, so you're
Mhm.
doing this full, you're fully kind of invested in this
Yeah,
all.
yeah, 1,000%, 24/7. It's like a nonstop. Even on days off that I don't, it's not actually days off. There's always work to be done. Yeah.
And how did you, so when, as you were kind of planning for it, I know you talked a little bit about it already, but as you were, this kind of idea was forming and you were thinking,
Mhm.
this is what I want to do, how long would you say it took you from like when you started having those serious thoughts about,
Mhm.
this vision you had to like
Mhm.
actually opening up your doors? Like, can you kind of talk to us a little bit about how that process was for you?
Yeah. Um, so I didn't, the idea came so quickly and it happened so quickly that I'm grateful for that because you don't have to. I think there is something okay about not having to know everything right away and you learn as you go. So, yeah, the idea was very new. And I had been considering opening a business because friends of mine I have really great friends who had been encouraging me to do something like that. I just didn't really know what it was exactly. But I always had a passion for coffee. So when the time came when I was looking at spaces and making it more real, from the moment that I like looked at the shop space and actually signed the lease was like a week. And in
Oh,
that time,
wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And in that time, it was just sort of like when it happened and I knew it was going to be a coffee shop and I decided it was going to be a coffee shop, it just sort of like everything, all these ideas were coming to me and it just felt very natural and organic. And I was immediately like in love with the idea. And it sort of just felt like, why didn't I think of this before? Or why didn't I do this earlier? But everything in due time and all of it happens for a reason. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was so that was like a week from when I signed the lease. And then from when I signed the lease to get all the permits and plans approved and inspections and construction and all of that, it was a year and a half that I had to like pay rent on the space, even though I'm not using it. And then also like finance all of the plans and the permits and and then especially coming all out of like my own pocket, it was very, very stressful. But
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah, and
Pushed
that's
through.
great. And I think that's like the behind the scenes again that not
Mm,
everybody gets to see or hear about,
mhm,
where it's,
mhm,
it's not, I think there's kind of a real there's just a real challenge sometimes when we
mhm,
compare ourselves like to other folks that are doing something, right? Like if we're starting out as entrepreneurs and people are getting started, right? It's easy to get discouraged because you
mhm.
see the end product a lot of times, but the talk about how
Mm,
you got there is not
mhm,
something that's as openly shared all the time. And so whether or not it was kind of smooth or little rough
mhm,
patches, even just time wise, it took a
mhm,
while. And that in and of itself can feel like, oh, I'm gonna get this started, like it's taking
mhm,
too long. But I think you put it really just beautifully about, the concept to like when you made the decision and then there was this waiting time and you're having
mhm,
to invest so much of yourself into that process for that long. And the beauty of it is that you have what you have now, which is this beautiful space that's flourishing. You have great coffee, you're building community, and you get to enjoy kind of that labor, the work of your time that you had to invest. But it's
Yeah.
not just like from one day to the next.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah. There were really, like, really tough moments. And, there are days where, like, I couldn't even afford groceries or, I leaned on my family a lot. They were very, very supportive.
Mm.
You know, even for like a cute little, like, pep talks. Ugh, they were so good about the pep talks, you know, and just
Wow.
approaching it one day at a time. But no, absolutely, there were really wonderful highlights, and then there were some really dark, dark times too. But I think it's part of the the process of like, you know, when you throw yourself into something and you're really passionate about it and you push through, and it's sometimes it's like not the greatest experience, but the end result is always worth it. And yeah, I think resilience is also something that was like built into us growing up here and having to adapt to like a new culture coming from like, you know, parents who were Mexican and didn't speak English at the time, and you know,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, you're having to navigate that as like a daughter of parents that are
Hmm.
new to the country in terms of that's not where they were raised, and
Hmm.
their customs and traditions, and they're kind of navigating this country, and then you're born here and having to
Hmm.
be a support system to them as
Hmm.
you're learning, right? Because
Hmm.
I know, like, for me too, very similar story, and I just remember being 5 years old having to translate for my mom at the bank. And you're like, I don't even know what this person is saying. Like, I'm five. Hello. But you're trying to help, right? You're trying to support. You're like trying to work around the words that you understand and the words you don't. And
Hmm.
so that along with your own kind of journey of wanting, having your own goals and visions for the future. So it's definitely a challenging kind of place to be. But I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing
Hmm.
that with everyone, and I know a lot of folks can
Yeah.
relate to exactly what you're sharing, so it's very helpful to and inspiring. um and so I know that there's so you were inspired to kind of start the coffee shop. You have this beautiful space now, and what would you say is like the core mission and purpose of your business?
At its core, my coffee shop's about connection. Um, you know, like I said, whether if it's someone coming in for their daily coffee, or they want to discover a new drink, or they just want to find a little corner to read. I have this really cute reading nook. I just really wanted to create a space where people felt like they belonged, every demographic, every age, every, you know. And I also just wanted to uplift other Latina entrepreneurs and creatives, and wanted to create a space where, you know, I could collaborate with other entrepreneurs and do events and do collabs and do, you know, show show that we can take up space in this industry essentially, and in this culture and community.
Mhm, mhm.
So
I love that. Yes, there's definitely a social mission that you have
mhm,
for your
mhm,
business.
mhm, mhm. My
And
mother is she was a community garden organizer for 20 years.
oh wow.
Yeah, so we were sort of raised with this ideal as well, and you know, fostering community. And she would host like these through the community garden. She would like host these, you know, posadas, and then um, taught people how to compost, taught people about eating organic, and she would just, you know. So from when we were very young, we were always like hanging out with her at this community garden, meeting people, and, you know, building relationships, leaning
Yeah.
on each other as a community.
Yeah, and that's so, I mean, I think it's so important, but it's also so much part of like the culture, like the
Mhm.
DNA of like who we are as
Mhm.
Latinas and our families and kind of how we're brought up. And seeing that,
Mhm.
I know, is manifested now and you're bringing that into
Mhm.
your business because it's who you are too. And so I
Mhm.
think that you pass it on like through generations, and it just looks different. Like for your mom, it was
Yeah.
a garden, which is
Mhm.
beautiful. And for you, it's this communal space. It's a coffee shop. And so the next generation will be something else, that will bring community together.
Mhm.
So
I
that's
love
just
the way that you put that. That's so true. I never thought of it that way, but I love that. You're right.
yeah, definitely. So so kind of on the subject of like purpose and mission, and I think about because you've been open, you told me 4 months or 5 months now.
Yes, so my soft opening was in end of October, but my grand opening was the first week of December. So really, we're going on like officially 4 months.
4 months. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's very, very new.
Yes,
Infancy
very.
stages for sure. Yeah.
So if you were to think about like 5 years from now, I don't know if you've gotten this
Mhm.
question, but kind of a, sometimes it's typical, like 5 years from now, what would you like, but I'll ask it anyways.
Yeah,
5 years
yeah,
from now or so, like
yeah.
where do you see, or where would you like to see the space, like your coffee shop grow? Like what kinds of things would you like to see and feel around you, or what would that look like?
I really want to see, I'm really excited about having an outdoor space and just having a place where like every seat is taken and there's chatting and connection and like, you know, good energy all around. I would want to see a space where, yeah, people are connecting. And then also, I do see myself opening other coffee shops, but maybe not the same. I not the exact same shop or not the exact same name either. I think what makes coffee shops so unique is the personalities that they sort of adopt, and the demographic I think has a lot to do with it. So if I hope that I can open some in the future who, and this time I feel like I will definitely have a partner. So whoever wants to collaborate with me, that shop would take on the person combine our combined personalities and create another space for the community that caters to that specific demographic, and sort of keep this idea of just like creating more pockets of spaces that are unique in their own way still, but that also like foster community and bring like good drinks and good vibes.
Yeah. I love that. It's a replicating effect that you
Yeah.
want to have. That's
Yeah.
really important. And
Mhm.
I think embracing, like you said, kind of the different personalities
Mhm.
is so important, because sometimes we want things to fit in our own
Mhm.
comfort box, right? But what we
Mhm.
need to do is kind of try to expand that and be like,
Yes.
what do you want this to be? Like, we want to
Mhm.
build this together. And I think that's
Mhm.
where people really feel, like you said earlier, really feel that they belong, really feel
Mhm.
safe and welcome. And we
Mhm.
need that right now more than ever, as you
Yeah.
know. We need
Yeah.
that sense of safety and that sense of belonging and being feeling worthy and welcomed in all spaces. So
Mhm.
I love that vision for you. I know you're gonna make it happen.
Thank
Um, and I wish you all the best for those plans to come. And 5 years are gonna
you.
go quick.
Thanks. I know these few months have been flying by. But yeah, I'm excited about, the future and what else, what other communities I can tap into. And like you're right, I think more than ever, we just need spaces like this. I don't
Mhm.
think, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So so I want to kind of backtrack a little bit, because I know you touched on kind of some of the challenges that you had faced as you were kind of building up, but
Mhm.
as we kind of transition into um, our last couple questions here I have for
Mhm.
you, I didn't
Mhm.
want to pass on kind of elaborating a little bit more on the challenges
Mhm.
that you might have had either currently or before or while you were building,
Yeah.
because to my earlier point, I don't think those things are talked about as much. And we want to stay positive, and but when we don't talk about the hardships, it's hard to stay positive because
Mhm.
you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so
Mhm.
it's easy to get bogged down in your own thoughts and be like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, this is horrible, it's a failure, I'm not gonna do it. But just if
Mhm.
you could speak what you feel comfortable sharing, obviously, but if you could just speak on that a little bit, like how you kind of maneuver through those challenges that you experience.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the biggest challenges were financial. It's opening a coffee shop, like a brick and mortar from the ground up, is very expensive. And like I said, I've been self-funded from the very beginning. So the permitting process was a major hurdle.
Mm,
There were a lot of delays, a lot of unexpected setbacks, like, edits that take weeks and weeks to get approved. There were a lot of moments where I doubted myself, and I learned so much, right? Because I was involved in every single process of the shop opening. So, and I wanted to be involved so that I could recreate this again if I needed to. And also because it was all, coming from me. So, I wanted to learn what it was like and what the process would be like. And so, yeah, just it was everything like inventory, just figuring out how to fund things like an espresso machine. Espresso machines are very expensive, and then just at the same time still paying rent on a space that I'm not even using because it hasn't been permitted and things like that. I did have a full-time job during the entire time that I was like going through the process, and that's what was basically financing um, the shop. So in that time, I was resourceful, and I everything that I made just sort of was like reinvesting into the shop. There were moments where I doubted if I could even keep going, but I leaned on my family and I reminded myself that I was fully invested in this and that failure was not an option. And yeah, I had to learn how to sort of like lean into my family, right? Because I come from like a very independent sort of personality and type. And so I had to unlearn that a little bit and stay very resourceful, and it just kept pushing forward and kept it one day at a time, just one day at a time.
Well, and you learned, I'm sure you learned so much about yourself during this journey, and you're
Yes,
still learning a lot about yourself,
absolutely.
but, it forces you to kind of be in your feels in ways that aren't always
Mhm.
fun.
Mhm.
And that's like,
Mhm.
oh man, okay, so like you said, you're not used to asking for help, you gotta ask for help, or
Mhm.
you're used to being
Mhm.
independent, you gotta lean more on
Mhm.
people. It definitely shapes not just your business, but you as a person. I would say it really kind of you change and evolve with the process and with the journey that you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad is a contractor and he helped. I totally maximized on this resource, and I had him come and help me, and he did basically everything inside for me. And in doing so, it really our relationship grew so much more.
Oh,
And now
beautiful.
we're very close now, closer than ever. And yeah, it just like sort of took our relationship to the next level as far as like, you know, like essentially he's like kind of like a business sidekick. He's also very invested in the shop, and it was really nice. It was like really great. Us like he taught me about construction and taught me how to like install lights and taught me, the fundamentals of like simple like handiwork. And again, like I was very independent, but it was really nice to sort of like have this. It was like a reparenting sort of moment. It was very
Yeah.
healing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I love that. That's so
Mhm.
beautiful. Well, I'm glad you had that with your dad. You have that with your dad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so if you were to be in a room full, which you are, people that are watching, they're rising entrepreneurs, Latina women that are
Mhm.
looking for that advice, that inspiration. And what would you say to a room full of rising Latina entrepreneurs in terms of like tips,
Uh,
guiding lessons? Like, what would you tell them?
um, well, first, you don't have to have everything figured out before you start. There is a beauty in learning as you go. Um, Also, I think be relentless about finding resources and community. I didn't realize at the time, and I think because I was alone, there are so many grants and mentorships and organizations and programs that can help you out early on, um, that will help specifically Latinas to succeed. Um, I learned the hard way, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't let imposter syndrome stop you from taking space. Um, and yeah, building something from the ground up is really difficult, but it's very worth it. And you just have to believe in yourself, even when things feel impossible. And Yeah, rest is not a reward, it's a necessity. Take care
Mhm.
of yourself, take care of yourself so that you can keep going.
That's a big one. I always when I hear people say that, I'm like, "Yes, rest, take a
Yes,
pause," because it's
yes,
part of your journey. Like, you
yes.
how can you keep going? You're not like this little what do they call it? That bunny with the battery.
And
Like,
you're
you're
just
not this not and even that
yeah.
runs out, the battery runs out pretty
Yeah, no,
quick.
yes, yes. Very
Yeah.
important. I think I had a hard time learning that one as well. Just like rest is so important. Fallow time is what the New York Times called it at one point. It's like you need to let your body just regenerate, absorb. You're doing something really difficult and just like it's a necessity, not a reward.
So true. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's so true.
Mhm.
So this has been really beautiful.
Thank
This
you.
conversation has been I've learned a lot about you. I've been inspired and just like re-energized myself. And so I really appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, your
Thank
vulnerability
you.
and sharing. Is there
Mm.
anything kind of your I call them like final words of wisdom that you want to leave folks with, or also an invitation to come out to your space as well?
Yeah, right. Yeah, just don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Again, be relentless, adapt, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And come on by to the shop anytime if you need any help. If you are thinking of starting any sort of coffee centered business, I am here to answer all of the questions. I am here to share all of the resources. Um, that's literally what I'm trying to be. I want, if there are other Latina entrepreneurs who are interested, I want to be able to like make it easier for them to facilitate the process. And yeah, or just come and hang out and have a nice cup of coffee with me. But yeah,
I love it. Well, Elle, thank you so much. This was beautiful. For
thank
all
you,
of
thank you.
you that are in the area, or if you're not in the area, it's a great place to invest your time to take the drive to Kismet Coffee in East LA. Beautiful space. More than anything, just a warm, just good energy, good vibes, a place where community thrives and we're all in this together and a place to kind of meet with friends or do your work or I did it all when I went there the last time and I plan to go back. So just want to encourage folks to visit you and get to know you and get to know your coffee shop. But thank you everybody for tuning in and we will see you all next time. Thank you, Elle.
Thank you.
Bye.